Hello everyone, Floyd Meyer here. I'm a physician assistant with a master's in public health. I have a degree in molecular biology, and I'm currently working in physical medicine and rehabilitation. And wow, have things changed since the last time I published any content. First, I took some time off to get married, which I am immensely grateful that we did when we did, because as soon as we got back from our honeymoon, the COVID pandemic started to unfold in front of us. Now, because there has been so much going on this past year, I thought it would be really good to take a step back and really look at where we were before the COVID-19 outbreak, look at where we are today, and then moving forward, we're going to be discussing how to become more resilient, which is your ability to remain well, recover, or even thrive in the face of adversity. Now, what was going on in healthcare prior to COVID? Well, the situation was already pretty bad. According to the Commonwealth Fund, the United States was spending a significantly higher percentage of its GDP compared to all other major nations on its healthcare costs. And despite this increase in spending on healthcare, the United States has the lowest life expectancy compared to these other major nations. And how can it be that we spend so much money and yet are having lower life expectancies, and we have access to some of the most amazing, groundbreaking technologies available? And the reason for this is because Americans are physiologically unwell. We have the highest rates of obesity, of diabetes, of cardiovascular disease. And this increase in chronic disease burden is what is driving our decrease in life expectancy. But pre-COVID, we really didn't care. We became used to millions of Americans dying each year from these chronic diseases, people dying from heart disease, from cancer, from diabetes, and from pneumonias and flus. And even if these people were members of our own family or close friends, their deaths still did not drive us to any significant action. But then COVID showed up, and it was a new thing, it was a new threat. It got everyone's attention, and people really started to pay attention. And COVID broke us out of our normal routines. We've become so obsessed with watching the daily death counts, it's become as normal as checking the daily weather forecast. And because people have become so obsessed with checking these daily death counts, I really wanted to put this into perspective for people. So I got this data directly from the CDC, and the most recent population data we have is from 2017. And as you can see in this graph, we had about 650,000 people die of heart disease in 2017. We had about 600,000 people die of cancer. And after those two major causes, the number of deaths dropped significantly. And so you can see that accidents, strokes, diabetes, all of these are going to be between 150 and 50,000 people per year. And when the numbers might make things a little bit confusing, so I also grabbed some graphs. And as you can see in the graphs, the heart disease and the cancer make up a significant portion of deaths in both men and women. And the rest of the causes are going to account for somewhere between 2% to 7% per year, respectively. Now, as of early November in 2020, COVID has been responsible for about 230,000 deaths in the United States. And this would make it the third leading cause of death compared to this data from 2017. Now, thankfully, when this originally came out, many, including myself, were very fearful that this was going to be a very significant pandemic at the level of the Black Plague or the Spanish flu, and potentially millions of people are dying. Now, obviously, this is still a major concern and a major catastrophe and something we need to deal with, but thankfully, it's not to that level. As this worldwide pandemic has unfolded, I have been paying a lot of attention, as I'm sure many of you have too. I've been listening to the top researchers, people that are experts in infectious disease, people that are emergency medicine physicians, and also different type of integrative and functional medicine physicians to try and figure out what is really going on. And what has become increasingly clear as time has passed is that COVID is a disease that is specifically targeting those people that have pre-existing conditions. Now, as of early November, the best data that I can find is that coming out of New York City. And in New York City, they have it broken down based off of if people have pre-existing conditions or if they do not. And as of this time in New York City, since the pandemic has unfolded, they've had about 19,000 people have died from COVID-19. Now, of this 19,000 people, which is a huge number of people, how many of them do you think did not have any pre-existing conditions at the time of their death? And this includes things like obesity, heart disease, cancer, asthma, kidney disease. How many of those out of those 19,000 do you think did not have any pre-existing conditions at the time of their death? The number is 121. So as from March, early March till November, about 120 people have died in New York City without any pre-existing conditions. So obviously any death is a tragedy, but if 121 people died in New York City from a disease, we wouldn't even know about it. It would be so inconsequential that it wouldn't have even been on the national radar. And since now we know that 99% of people are dying from this disease do have some type of pre-existing condition, what if we looked at the people that were actually healthy? And yes, I understand that healthy people can get this disease and can succumb to it, but the risk is significantly decreased. Again, it's 19,000 of them did likely have some type of pre-existing condition, and about 120 of them did not. And I'll even take a step back. What if we just looked at those people that follow even the most basic public health recommendations? People that sleep 7 to 9 hours per night, people that exercise 3 to 4 times a week, people that eat 5+ servings of vegetables each day. How many of those people are ending up in our ICUs and emergency rooms fighting for their life? Probably very, very few. We are reaching a critical consciousness where we are realizing that overall health status is the #1 predictor when it comes to your risk of disease. COVID-19 has made this crystal clear both by its novelty and by making the risk of sickness and death more acute. People have a very difficult time with habit change when the risk of doing nothing is maybe having a heart attack or maybe getting cancer in 20 to 30 years. But now, because of COVID, the risk of acute disease and death has made this, something that people will actually pay attention to because it can happen today. Now, looking ahead, I want you to imagine, what if we had a population of truly resilient, healthy people? Would we even bat an eye to this new virus? Would we have to shut down a single store? Maybe only the most vulnerable among us would have to be more isolated as the rest of the population built up a collective immunity. Now, obviously, I don't know exactly what would happen, but I can assure you we would be in a much better situation if our citizens were strong and resilient. Know this, as the world gets more interconnected and the population continues to increase, the number of these pandemics will increase both in frequency and in severity. And we cannot simply wait for our governments to help. We cannot simply build more ventilators and open more ICU beds. We must increase the resilience of our population. We must raise the bar. Anything else is unacceptable. As Charles Eisenstein said in his powerful essay, The Corona Nation, COVID-19 is showing us that when humanity is united in common cause, phenomenally rapid change is possible. None of the world's problems are technically difficult to solve. They originate in human disagreement. In coherency, humanity's creative powers are boundless. We need to build a more resilient, a more healthy society, one that can remain well, recover, or even thrive in the face of adversity. And that's why I will be focusing all of my efforts moving forward on increasing your resilience. If this resonated with you, please share with your friends and family. Please subscribe for more of this content. The time for action is now. Again, this is Floyd Meyer. Have a great day.